Frank Stanisci Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure and you're ready to leave a comment. Comment at both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland.
Hey Frank, how you doing?
Not well. My computer has. I'm seeing tons of digits coming at me, and all of them have to do with the fact that I can't make out what's going on my computer. It's freezing. Now my tongue is freezing too. It's freezing left and right. It's been amazing how difficult it's been. So I'm straightening it out, and there you are. I want to see you, and I couldn't get you to come up, and I had to insist. So there's your pretty face. I can see you now. Awesome. I think it's fair to say that the top story today. I'm saying it's Groundhog Day is the top story today.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I would much rather go with Groundhog Day at this point than anything pretty much else out there. It's just more palatable, you know?
It's not just that. It's the most relevant. Think about it. The weather we've had. And then, it has been cold, And I know the people who don't believe in global warming, they point at it and go, see, what are you talking about global warming? It's so friggin' wish we had some global warming. It's been a really tough winter. And, we do sports here, right? And we've seen how Canada has, whether they did it intentionally, whether it's just a coincidence, whether just, why not, taking advantage of southern countries playing up here in the winter. And today, a big game is going on. And I seem to be sidetracking us. But the point is, in Minnesota, the U.S. is going to be playing in a game that's very important to decide whether, Canada can clinch in this window. And it's going to be minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which at that point, it's the same as centigrade, in and around the same thing, because I think they intersect at 32 below, I think. And so, that kind of weather, it affects sports. We've been watching it, and it's something that is affecting sports. It affects us in every way because we're in a cold climate. The sports that we watch, the majority of them are indoors. We don't have the same luxury as people down south, right? Where they can go outside, and then that affects the pandemic. So the Groundhog Day to me is an important thing, because when the groundhog tells us summer's on its way, it also means hope is on its way this year more than any other.
Well, it is true that Wyerton Willie did predict an early spring. Unfortunately, he also predicted another 6 weeks worth of truckers. So, he's also in disagreement with Shubenacadie Phil, who predicted another 6 weeks of winter as well. So,
that's sort of the second story, and the reason it's the second story to me is the convoluted way that discussions get hijacked. Do I have to go further, or do you want to pick it up from there? I think you know exactly what I'm getting at.
No, I certainly do. And like a lot of people, I think there are folks out there that agree with the truckers convoy as originally stated. And that was to protest mandates.
Right.
And mandatory vaccines and all of that sort of thing. Not that you don't want to get vaccinated. You just don't think that everybody should have to.
Or have to, yes.
Yeah. So that was
the
original intent. And I understand that, and I appreciate that 110%. The problem that we have here is the truckers let themselves get organized by a yellow vester, an alleged member of the Sons of Odin, and members of the Maverick Party, also known as the Wexit Party, who, through their willingness to take the lead on this, subverted the original purpose. And the original purpose was to protest the mandates. What the Maverick Party wanted to do was to get Trudeau to resign. and to affect political power change at the top of the structure in Ottawa. And they weren't going to leave until they got it. Now, as an offshoot of this, I'm just going to roll into one of our stories here, Frank. They did affect power change in Ottawa. However, it wasn't the person that they wanted out that they got out. They managed to shoot out O'Toole. So,
So, gee, there's a lot to unpack there for me.
oh yeah,
Okay. I'm not sure about the names of the parties, but what I am sure of, what I will say, I'm going to do the old, believe half of what you hear and most of what you see, um, or don't believe anything that you hear and believe what you see. So I'm not going to agree or disagree with what you're talking about, these different parties, but I'd like to strip it down to what I think are the basics. Is I agree that people have a right to protest. There is no way that I can say with any kind of certainty that truckers don't have the right to complain about the fact that they have to be vaccinated. I appreciate their desire to exercise their right. Free speech is something that I think we all understand that free speech means also listening to stuff that you don't want to hear. If we narrow down free speech to be what we want to hear, what everybody wants to hear, then we become the kind of country I don't think we want to be, and that is silenced. So first of all, I believe in the premise of why they went there. I believe in what they were doing was right. What I have a problem with is when they start saying things like this government has to be torn down. If they want to talk about tearing down the government, they should be talking about how it gets elected and how it gets unelected. That's what you do in a democracy. This isn't the United States where lunatics get to go to the main house of government, the seat of government, and start closing the place down. That's not who we are. That's not who Canadians are. We're known to be apologetic even when we shouldn't be. We're known to be polite. But that doesn't mean that we're entrance carpets that get our people's feet wiped on us either. No one should feel that way. No one should feel like they're being taken advantage of. So I do understand why the truckers feel like they're being taken advantage of. And what I'll say too is the satellite groups or the people who use the truckers to basically air their grievances, which didn't have anything to do directly with the truckers. The truckers don't care who's in power. They just don't want mandatory vaccination. That's what they want, if you believe them at their word, right? So then you get people who hijack it and use the excuse of the truckers to bait and switch. That's something I don't approve of. I don't approve of people waving swastikas. That's something that not my forefathers, because my forefathers came from a different country, they fought for, right, to destroy the swastika, because what it represented was something that this country didn't believe in so much that many a young man and woman died to defend against that flag. And then to bring a flag from the United States that the Americans, who are a partner of ours, a flag that represents racism and other things that we don't believe in, to put those in those trucks and to have the people, I had a discussion with somebody, and rather than discuss what I was discussing, which was taking a decent group of people who were looking for a decent relief from a situation they felt they didn't need to go through, which is mandatory vaccines, and have morons hijack the event, racists, disgusting people, disrespectful, dancing on the unknown soldier's tomb. These are not the truckers. We shouldn't blame the truckers. I don't think it was the truckers. And I applaud the truckers for what they tried to do, but I would hope the truckers would also stand up and say, these morons aren't with us. Get rid of them. And that's how I feel about it. I want to make clear that I hope I'm not being wishy-washy here, Aaron.
no, I understand what you're trying to say, Frank.
It irritates me. It
Oh,
totally irritates me that when I see people, it's like, and then you get into these discussions. We're not talking anymore about what we were originally talking about. Now we're talking about, I'm ended up talking about Antifa. What does Antifa have with this truck thing that's going on? So people have an agenda they want to put out there. They don't want to resolve issues. They're just troublemakers that don't know anything else because they don't know how to build, right? And I like to think of myself as somebody who likes to build a conversation to an end. So at the end of the day, the government should respond to what the truckers complained about, explain to them whatever their stance is, and whatever their stance is, if you don't like it, there's an election that you can unelect them. That's the beauty of our democracy. We don't need guns and we don't need threats to overturn the government. We can do it with something called, I want to run this by you. I don't know if you ever heard of this. Free will.
Mm-hmm.
Free will. We have that here. So use it and stop bitching and complaining about life in general because you're not happy and you're living in your mother's basement and you can't afford to move upstairs. Just can't friggin' stand it. That's all I can say. There, I said it.
Well, thank you, Frank. It's good to hear that out of someone else other than me.
But like I said, Aaron, where we disagree, I'm not a big fan of mandates. I'm not, I can relate to what they're saying. On that subject, we can go on for another 10 minutes. The point being, for me, as far as mandates are concerned, in this case, if you want to talk about that, as far as mandates are concerned, I don't believe in them. Why? Because I don't like people being forced to do stuff. But then you have to, on balance, you have to ask yourself, and I honestly come from the point where I prefer not to have mandates. But then you have to ask yourself, in my opinion, Aaron, you have to ask yourself, if not being vaccinated closes up the hospitals, if not being vaccinated really increases the cost of healthcare, if not having mandates means you can't have kids in school, then people have to ask a question. When the Nazis are barreling down on England, do we go to war or not? Where do you stand? That's my view on it. I don't agree with mandates, but I also don't agree with making the healthcare system buckle within itself. And then the economy suffers too. And then these truckers don't have a job. That's the one thing we all have in common, right? We all want to get back to life.
There is something else I'd like to point out in Alberta
Please,
at a place called Coots near the border. There is another protest going on with truckers blockading the road and blocking the border. This is in violation of the Alberta Infrastructure Act. The RCMP asked them to move. The truckers said, "We refuse to comply." And the RCMP went, "Whoa, guess we can't do anything then." In the meantime, they are blocking a great number of Canadian truckers from coming back across the border. In addition, where these truckers have set up is right at the entrance to a First Nations reservation. They are preventing First Nations people from getting to and from their jobs and to and from their families.
Again, we were talking about not dealing with the issue and leaving innocent parties out of it. We're dragging people into it because I suppose the theory might be the more pain and inconvenience we cause, the more happy we will be to know that we're disturbing other people so they're disturbed by us as well. What they can't figure out is nobody else cares. The people they want to do something go, well, you look bad. What do we care? Right? Because if you're on the side of the equation that they're trying to have a discussion with, or whose minds they want to change, they're only hurting innocent people who now are turning around and going, I'm not too friendly with truckers right now. Right? You're just building enemies. So
basically, at this point, the truckers are doing all of the negative PR work for them. They don't have
again though. Can we also keep reminding people that we're not talking about truckers under the giant please, let's not. We don't want to. I don't want to sound. You can speak for yourself, Aaron. I don't want to sound like I'm picking on every trucker because of what one trucker does. I don't want to pick on every trucker because some idiot comes behind him in a pickup truck and he has a chance now to show off his swastika that he's had in storage. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here are people who are opportunists to create trouble for trouble's sake, not for any end good. That's what I smell here. That's the coffee that's brewing in my mind.
No, there are over 270,000 registered truckers in Canada. Of those 270,000, there's maybe 0.5% that are doing this. Don't tar and
Well,
feather all the truckers with the same brush. This
no,
is, again,
and
what I'd like to call a
even the ones
yep,
that are marching, if I can call it marching, Aaron. I want to make that clear. I can't say enough how important it is that those people have a right to exercise their free speech. They have that
yep.
right.
Oh, 100%. They 100% have the right to exercise their free speech, and that's fine. And
Because
a
I
lot
know
of
that
them
if
are
I
doing that, So, hey, cool, good on them. But at the same time, it's the fringe elements in there that are making the rest of the truckers,
the people who
99% of
have
them,
nothing to do with the trucking
yes,
issue.
exactly.
Let's underline that. For those of you that think we're attacking the truckers, nope. We understand what they're trying to do. We even respect what they're trying to do. We don't have a say in solving their problem other than when the election comes, or if I write a letter to my MP saying, maybe it's an idea that, like, and this is something they can do. They can speak to people and say to people, hey, listen, why don't you send a letter to your MP and say, you know what? We don't like the idea that these mandates are making truckers feel so uncomfortable that they refuse to drive. I want to go to my store and see the shelves are full, because that's what's happening here is, we're literally, as a society, in this situation, shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yep, pretty much.
In the big picture, Aaron, without pointing fingers, with just looking at it objectively, and spinning it around and having a look at, cause and effect, right? So that's what I don't like about it. So we've used up half the show on that one topic, and it had a bit of an extension. It started with Groundhog Day. I'd like to see good weather so that maybe it'll cheer people up as well, because with good weather comes the battle against the pandemic improving, because we do know from previous experience that the outdoors are much safer than the indoors. So we can't wait to be going outdoors. That's my point with the groundhog, why I love the groundhog so much. So that was a nice little healthy sandwich. We just 2 slices of bread, the groundhog, and the rest of the meat in the middle. Okay, let's talk about the Canadian Football League. And we've got some interesting situations going on. Why don't you rattle it off for? I don't feel like saying anything for a couple of minutes.
Sure. So Rough Riders and Cody Fajardo have agreed to a restructured contract for the 2022 CFL season. This lets them do a little bit more with what they've got. Cody threw for 2,970 yards and 14 touchdowns in 2021, helping the Roughies to a 9-5 record. He also added 468 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Good for them. I'm actually glad to see him back. Also on Monday, the Rough Riders signed defensive back Godfrey Oneka and Mitch Picton to contract extensions. Both of those are Canadian players. So that's part of what we're looking at here. Now, in the light of one of the Lions quarterbacks retiring, this was Michael Riley leaving. Nathan Rourke has now been named as the starting quarterback heading into camp for the BC Lions. So the intention is for him, once camp is done, to be their full-time starting quarterback. He's got big shoes to fill. Riley was a giant, both on and off the field. So where he's going to have to look to complete that. Mazzoli, actually, for the Hamilton Ticats, the negotiation window is now open, as some of you are aware. So Jeremiah Mazzoli right now is drawing a little bit of interest. I know that his time in Hamilton has technically come to an end. So he's looking for slightly greener pastures here. So we'll have to see where he ends up. Trust that the bidding will be intense. Should be a good time. Now, they've also re-signed one of their veteran defensive backs to a 2-year extension. That's American defensive back Cariel Brooks. He played 12 regular season games with them last year, registering a league-high 5 interceptions, along with 23 tackles, 3 pass knockdowns, and a sack. At 5'10" and 200, he was also named a CFL All-Star for the first time. Continuing on here, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have agreed to an extension with one of their receivers from last year. Once again, Winnipeg is going through and rebuilding and retooling. They signed Rasheed Bailey to a 1-year contract extension. So yeah, he's a fantastic player. He played in all 14 regular season games last year and registered 52 catches, 629 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Those are all career highs for him. So they'll be glad to see him back on the other side of the ball, on the right side of the ball this year.
Okay, the NHL and Leaf talk, if you will. The Toronto Maple Leafs have they're a trending kind of team. They were trending giving up 3-1 leads, and now they're trending taking leads and overcoming them. And then last night they created a lead that couldn't be overcome by a team that I don't think had the tools to overcome. The only goal scorer for New Jersey was the ex-Maple Leaf, who is now, he's changed his name. He was Janssen when he was in Toronto. He's Johnson now in New Jersey. He's asked the pronunciation of his name to be changed. Good for him. The Maple Leafs have proven, as far as I'm concerned, they have really done a good job of proving that they really have a lot of try in them, because we've seen them play terribly, Aaron, but they've really, I think there's one characteristic that I think through these both versions, the let a lead go by, catch up, go ahead, win. Those two ways that they play speak to one thing, that they don't play bad enough long enough to lose. And that's a pretty good trait.
Well, I find it interesting that January, I think, was what a lot of folks called one of their worst months ever. They played absolutely horribly. They were terrible. And yet somehow ended the month of January 8-2-1.
You're reading Facebook posts. I like the ones that start, I know they're 8-2-1, but they've been playing terrible.
They have been. Let's be honest. I mean,
they have. But that's the point I was just making. They play terrible, but not long enough to basically lose a hockey game. They do have the ability, and this can be dangerous and this can be concerning to the coach. But he doesn't seem to be. I don't think I've seen a Leaf coach. I'm trying to remember. Okay, maybe Burns, Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
When I speak of these coaches, I'm speaking to coaches who make their teams accountable. Not after a week or 2 weeks worth of terrible play, the very night they play bad. That's one trait this coach has. Is that fair?
I think so, because he did actually sit Marner in game for a couple of shifts. He benched him for a couple of shifts in game because he wasn't playing particularly well. So
in the middle of a scoring streak.
Go figure, right? Like, dude.
And I'm not criticizing that. I'm complimenting that.
I think it's absolutely fantastic that he's actually gone as far as he has to make the players as accountable as they have been. So, I mean, that's a change from the sort of the boys will be boys, let them do what they're going to do sort of approach that some coaches have had in the past. So,
well, we've been taught, if we pay attention, that team's bad play doesn't just turn on a switch, right? They slide into bad play. So the key to the coach and coaching is to identify the beginning of the slide and terminate it as quick as possible, right? Because if you nip it in the bud, it's a lot easier to do that than it is to rehaul everything. The further you end up in that rabbit hole, the harder it is to get pulled out, I think.
And I think Keefe is learning to recognize those signs in game and make changes now, which is a really good sign.
We only got a minute now. Let's talk about Canada's soccer team that in this window, there's a good chance that they could, in fact, clinch a spot in the World Cup. I mean, Aaron, this is the best team that we've seen at this point anyway, since '86, the last time they qualified.
This is very true. I mean, at this point here, it is entirely possible that we could actually clinch it tonight, provided a couple other teams lose as well. The unfortunate issue we have here is that at some point earlier today, the El Salvadorian players had indicated that they had not been paid by their country's soccer federation and were going to sit out in protest as a result. So, I mean, while this would technically get Canada the win, it doesn't do anything for their tiebreaker when it comes to goal differential. So I had heard different noises and different rumblings out there that they would actually play and that they wouldn't actually play. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my TV at 8:30 and see if there's a soccer
for the best. Yeah, and if they don't play, Canada wins 3-0. So and as you said, advancing to the World Cup to Qatar for Canada will not depend on goal differential. I don't think it's going to. They're not in that tight a situation. That'll be going on further down the standings.
No, most definitely. I don't think it's going to affect them at this point. The only thing they need to worry about is where this is going to put them with regards to which group they're going to end up in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It'll be interesting. It'll be totally interesting. I have to say, I'm totally pleased with what's going on. It is, all right. Canada is a country that loves hockey. We love football. You know how I feel about football. And part of what's wrong with the Canadian Football League is that they haven't figured out a way to attract people who weren't originally from Canada. And the one thing you can be assured of, pretty assuredly, is that those same people are the people that love the game of soccer where they came from. So, so this is a latent soccer crazed country, in my opinion. Again, I have lots of opinions.
Again, you're not wrong on that. It's all of the immigrants that bring the joy of the game with us that help fuel us, and the fact that more and more players now are willing to identify as Canadian as opposed to going to play somewhere else.
And the ones that were from somewhere else are playing for Canada.
Yep.
Immigration has been given a really good look with this soccer team. They're proof that immigrants have a lot to offer Canada. And that's what these guys are doing. They're proving it. And I'm sure with and if I'm not mistaken, maybe to a lesser degree, the Canadian women's team as well is, not as they're more reliant on homegrown talent. Our ladies, our homegrown women here are a bigger component within the game. They're not exclusive, but they're a bigger component. So whatever way makes Canada better, how can you not cheer for them? So 8:30 tonight, they begin the opportunity to really show that they belong in the World Cup. So that's something that we can all look forward to.
Most definitely.
Well, Aaron, we've arrived at the end of our time. Once again, I went on a rant and you came along for a little bit of the ride, and that half hour just zoomed right by.
No, it is what it is. But, as long as we're getting the content out there and people hear our messages every once in a while, I'm happy with that.
As long as we don't get much hate mail. I expect a little, but not too much, I hope. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Frank.
For Aaron Freeland, I'm Frank Stanisci. Thanks for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now. God bless.